Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Nurhayani Kencana Manik from PBI class 4. Thank you for the opportunity on this occasion, and I will present a presentation that discuss three interesting podcasts from this learning English. This podcast not only enrich our listening skills in English, but also provide new insight into various topic of daily life. Okay, guys. Before we get into the meat of the discussion, let me explain a bit about the purpose of this presentation. First, to practice our ability to understand spoken English, especially in the natural context of narrative conversation. Second, to analyze the content of each podcast in terms of the language and message. And the third, to share what lesson we can take from the three podcasts. And each podcast has a different delivery style, a variety of word choice, and an interesting cultural context for us to explore more deeply. And through this presentation, I hope that we all not only understand the content of the podcast, but we can also add a value to improve our English language skill, both academically and practically in our daily lives, something like that. Okay, guys, here I'm going to present about an episode from three different BBC podcasts that I listen. The first podcast is about Your Did to Me, which combine history with humor. And the episode is about the history of Broadway musicals. And the second podcast is from BBC Inside Science, and it investigate the tragic Grenfell Tower fire, focusing on the chemistry of the cladding used. And the third podcast is from More or Less Behind the Stat, which discuss statistical claims in media. And the episode I just covers U.S. military aid to Ukraine and the actual numbers behind political statements. Okay, and next is summarize of the content from the first podcast is Your Did to Me. This episode discuss the evaluation of Broadway musicals, and the main topic is how Broadway developed from vaudeville and burlesque to modern mega musicals. And one interesting point he host mentioned is how Broadway incorporate black performers early on, even within problematic formats like minstrelsy. And the episode also highlights how musicals like Oklahoma change the way music and story blended on stage, making the genre more emotionally resonant and plot driven. And the second podcast of is Inside Science, and this episode discuss the fire at Greenfield Tower and how the materials used on the building contribute to the repeat spread. And the main topic is the chemistry of the cladding aluminum, composite panels with uh, poly- polyethylene cores and how they act like foil. And one interesting point mentioned is that the insulation foam produce hydrogen cyanide through inhalation, and the episode also had like highlight the lack of proper testing and regulation around smoke toxicity in construction materials. And the next is third podcast from More or Less. Um, this episode discussed a claim made by Donald Trump about U.S. military aid to Ukraine, and the main topic is verifying whether the U.S. gave 30-50 billion dollars in aid. And one interesting point is that actual feature how show the U.S. gave even more, even including financial and humanitarian aid. And the episode also highlight how politicians sometimes mispresent statistics to support their narrative. Right? Okay, guys. So next is explanation of key terms or concepts. Okay, from the first podcast is integrated musicals. This term means musicals in which song, dance, and plot are closely woven together. In the podcast, it is explained as a big innovation from show like Oklahoma, and this concept relates to real life because it shows how storytelling in entertainment evolved to be more emotionally powerful and complex. And from the second podcast is hydrogen cyanide. This is a toxic gas released when materials like polyurethane foam burn. In the podcast, it is explained as the main cause of death for many Greenfield victims. And this concept uh, relates to real life because it stresses the importance of building safety and proper regulation. And from the third podcast is sunk cost fallacy. This term refers to our tendency to continue investing in something because we have already spent time or money on it, even when it's not logical. In the podcast, it was mentioned in relation to people staying in long uh, queues for overpriced concert tickets. And this concept relates to real life because it explained everyday behaviors and poor decision making. Okay, guys, the last explanation about language expression from the first podcast that I listened is the show must go on. These idioms mean that no matter what happens, you have to keep performing or working. And people usually say this show with determination. And next is let it go. And its main express is both a joke from frozen, and an idiom that means to stop worrying about something. And from the second podcast that I listened is Wrapped in Firelighters, and it's mean a metaphor describing how danger the gliding was, comparing it to materials that ignite easily. And next is buckle under pressure, means to collapse or fail when under stress, often used in construction or emotional contexts. And the last podcast is back of the envelope. It's mean an idiom meaning a quick raw calculation. And last is move the needle, an idiom meaning to make a significance different or change. Okay, guys, that's all from me. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.